So I open my eyes, I'm disoriented. I'm laying on my side on the bathroom floor. I'm just curled up, clutching my midsection. And Chris, my mind is just blown at that point because as I look around me in the bathroom, it is just filled with angels. Four or five large angels. They are big. They're much bigger than human beings. They're more like 8, 9, 10 feet tall. So they're just filling my bathroom.
I'd like to welcome to the show Wendy Rose Williams. Wendy had not one but two near death experiences in August 1997 while she was pregnant. Meeting the soulmate Wendy contracted with to wake her up spiritually led her to Dr. Michael Newton's Journey of Souls. These two events in tandem triggered a profound spiritual awakening. She experienced stunning physical and emotional breakthroughs from her own past life regression therapy sessions and other healing work, including releasing a decades-long battle with debilitating daily chronic pain and mobility issues. The remarkable difference in Wendy's quality of life from healing her own past life energy inspired her to help others release the energy that no longer serves them. Wendy trained with Dr. Brian Weiss, author of Many Lives, Many Masters, and other leading experts for past life regression therapy, between lives energy healing, and future life progression. She is a certified spiritual teacher, Reiki master energy healer, author, and hypnotherapist, as well as a channel. How are you today, Wendy?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
I'm happy to have you. So, what was your life like before your NDE?
Before the NDE, I actually had two NDEs a couple days apart in August of 1997. And at that point, I was 36 years old and just a conservative, really busy, married, working mother. We had a toddler, and my husband and I were both working full time. And just, we both had MBA degrees, Masters in Business Administration, and were, I would say, casual Christians would be the best description. Believed in God, believed in Yeshua, in Jesus as his son, as an amazing healer, and that's about as far as it went.
Okay.
uh, that's where we were, and we had been having a struggle with infertility for years.
Mm.
There also had been two ectopic pregnancies, so that kind of sets the stage of where we were. So I had just had one visit to my OBGYN physician because I was only 10 weeks pregnant. And from his perspective, everything was looking great. I was noticing two things, Chris, that just seemed odd to me, that seemed off to me.
Mm.
And the first one was I was having just this incredible heartburn like I'd never had in my life. And I'd actually called the doctor's office several times, and they said, oh, go ahead and take Mylanta. Mylanta is safe in pregnancy. So I'm taking that by the bucket load, and it's
Hmm.
not doing a thing for me. And the other thing that was happening, I kept having this vivid dream multiple times a week, and it was always the same dream. And I'd never had that happen before. And what I would see in the dream, it was this terrible storm out at sea, and I would see this big sailing vessel with multiple masts, and there was all this tearing and ripping going on, like all the cleats were tearing off, and all the winches were coming off, and the masts would fall, a ship would break in two, and the ship would go down.
Mm.
And I didn't know the concept of prophetic dreams, that a dream can be trying to get your attention. And it doesn't take a, master dream interpreter to say, hey, Wendy, your ship's about to go down.
Yeah.
So that is exactly what happened. So on the day of the first near-death experience, I was working at home. I was alone. My husband's at work. He's got one of our two cars. Our nanny is at the park with our daughter, and she's got the other car. It's August of 1997. And I just didn't feel right. I just could not get comfortable. I couldn't focus. And all of a sudden, Chris, I had this feeling of impending doom. I've never had that feeling before. It's a very specific, very remarkable feeling. And at the time, I knew next to nothing about near-death experiences because, again, it was 1997. It wasn't
Right.
like now where there's just so much more, documentaries, podcasts, books, support groups, whatever
Hmm.
whatever it might be. So I ran into the bathroom thinking, I'm going to be sick. Something's really, really wrong. And as the minute I got into the bathroom, I had just this searing pain in my abdomen. I looked down in surprise because it really felt like someone had stuck a knife in me. And I felt like an organ burst was the
Mm.
only thing I could think of that was happening. And I cried out to God for help as I was going down. And I fell to the floor and I passed out and was unconscious on the floor. And I only woke up because there was this insistent male voice, and he just kept saying, Wendy, Wendy, you've got to wake up now or you're going to go home.
Mm.
And I knew exactly what he meant, that I was going to die if I did not get prompt medical attention and help. So I open my eyes. I'm disoriented. I'm laying on my side on the bathroom floor. I'm just curled up, clutching my midsection. And Chris, my mind is just blown at that point because as I look around me in the bathroom, it is just filled with angels.
Wow.
4 or 5 large angels. They are big. They're much bigger than human beings. They're more like 8, 9, 10 feet tall. So they're just filling my bathroom. So much light coming from them. And I could just feel this unconditional love and this wisdom and this feeling of holding me, like almost like picking me up or cradling me. So the same spokesperson Angel continues to speak, and he says again, Wendy, you've got to call for help now, or you're going to go home. And I answered him, and I said, I understand, but I can't walk. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get to the telephone? Because
Right.
again, it's 97, so we don't have, the cell phone,
Hmm.
glued in our back pocket or, on our body somewhere like we often do now. I had to get to a landline. And his answer to me, Chris, it was so uh, multi-layered. It was so compelling. And what he said is, you just have to be willing to try. And I think what he was referring to was multiple things. Yes, the obvious of we've got to put in the effort. No one
Hmm.
can come in and, take a magic wand and just, fix our life, change our life, make our life better. We've got to be an active participant in it, of course. I think he was also referring to free will
Mm.
because and I had cried out for help as I was going down and just feel so fortunate that this incredible assistance came in for me so quickly when I most needed it. So I managed to get up on my hands and knees. And the moment I did that, that was me being willing to try.
Hmm.
It was like being gently moved, bilocated, flown. I don't know the best term for it. I was in the bathroom and I'm now just suddenly gently, gently moved in that same position. And I'm in the bedroom, which is very close by, and I can reach up and grab the phone off the nightstand. And so I do that, and I had a brief thought of who should I call? But
Hmm.
I'm a healthy 36-year-old. I've never called 911 in my life. So
Right.
would have been a great time to call 911, but it just didn't enter my mind. And I called my husband at work because I knew he worked 5 minutes from home, and which was unusual. It's the only time we've ever had that situation. So again, I think I was just being so aided. I got him on the phone immediately. That has never happened. And I give him a lot of credit because all I said was, I need you to drive me to the hospital now. Can you take me to the hospital now? And all he said was, on my way. And I could hear him, so I could hear the phone slam down. So I call the OBGYN office at that point. I tell them what's happening. I tell them my abdomen is distending really oddly. I can't understand why my abdomen's getting bigger and bigger. So they said, that's great. Your husband's on his way. He can get you here faster than 911 at this point. So when you get here to our office, and my OBGYN office was located right at the hospital, which again, I think was very important for me. And they said, don't try and park the car. Just pull up curbside, leave the
Hmm.
car there. We're going to meet you with a wheelchair. We don't want you walking. So it's exactly what happens. I get whisked up to the ultrasound room in the
Mhm.
physician's office, and they help me up on the table because I can't even get up on the table myself. And I'm looking at the screen and I'm really puzzled, Chris, because I can't see anything
Right.
except like these black wavy lines. I'm like, what the heck is that? It's like the whole view's obscured. So I look at the ultrasonographer. I'm like, is your machine working right? I don't understand. And her response was, I'm going to get the doctor now.
It's never a good sign.
Exactly. I look at my husband. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't like that. So she returns very quickly. She has not only the physician with her, but she's got a nurse midwife with her. And that did kind of give me a chuckle because we've now got like five of us squeezed in this, minuscule room. And the doctor adjusts the ultrasound, and he recognizes immediately what's going on and tells me, as kindly as he can, but very to the point, Wendy, you've got a major abdominal bleed going on. This ultrasound is working fine. What you're actually seeing on the screen, it's all blood. It's blood loss. There's a major blood loss, and that's why we can't see any organs or see anything else like we normally would. We
Mhm.
need to admit you to the hospital right now. So someone ran and got a stretcher. They didn't even want me sitting up in
Mhm.
the wheelchair. So they take me over and admit me, lift me into the hospital bed, and registration comes up. There's nurses coming in. The doctors with me. There's just a lot of help and support and just a lot going on all at once. My husband is there, and we the nurse asks me, "What is your blood type? We need to get," because the doctor's ordered
Mhm.
transfusions, because I clearly need transfusions at this point. I am not happy. I'm in so much pain, and I'm going through in my mind, "Oh my gosh, first trimester," and we're blowing through the pain relievers too, and pretty quickly I've gone through the Demerol. It's not doing a thing. They
Mhm.
try something else, nothing. I'm on morphine,
Mhm.
and the doctor, the nurse is out calling. She's at the nurse's station. I also noticed they put me right next to the nurse's station. I worked in healthcare, so I'm kind of seeing things on an extra level. I know that means they're really concerned, which I appreciated that they had me right there. And she's calling for blood. She asked me my blood type and said, "Do you know your blood type?" It's like, absolutely. Everyone should know their blood type. This is so important. And nowadays, there are these free in case of emergency. It's called an ICE app that
Mhm.
you can download to your phone. And so if you're ever in a situation where, medical emergency, car accident, you're not feeling well, etc., the medics can get into this on your phone without knowing your password.
Mm.
And you can put in your blood type, any allergies, any major information. I've got in there how to feed my dog. Because, hey, I live alone and somebody would need to know how to get in my house and how to
Yep.
take care of my dog. So she asks me my blood type. I tell her it's A negative, and she goes to call the Puget Sound Blood Bank because this was in the Seattle area, and it's a central blood bank to not be wasting this precious resource.
Mhm.
So the nurse comes back in a few minutes later, not looking happy, and to our surprise, she says, I can't get any blood for her because this is practically unheard of, because evidently the blood bank just told me there was a major train collision in Seattle 3 days ago, and it wiped out all the A negative blood.
Mm.
So we had been discussing, was I going to go straight to surgery? Should I be transferred downtown? What should we be doing? So they were thankfully able to get blood for me about 6 hours later. They must have borrowed it from another local,
Mhm.
but we didn't want to rush into surgery because I'm pregnant. We don't know what we're operating on. And also, Chris, I mean, the body is a miracle. So we're doing, wait and watch, have me lay prone in the bed, can't get up even to go to the bathroom. And of course, I'm being closely attended. We're doing blood work and, many, many other things all day and all night long to see how I'm doing. And I'm just going through these bags of blood really,
Mm.
really quickly. I chose to stay in my local community hospital and not be transferred into downtown Seattle because I knew, as I said, I worked in healthcare and I'd had my infertility work up there. I'd had two ectopic pregnancy surgeries as well as my delivery. So I knew they delivered about 5,000 babies a year at that time. So I knew they had a deep infrastructure for OB emergencies. So I was like, I'm staying right where I am. I'm where
Hmm.
I'm meant to be. But Chris, I could feel, so we did wait and watch for about three days.
Wow.
And I could feel myself walking between worlds. It was very hard to stay conscious, to intelligently answer questions when medical personnel would come in or when my husband would visit. And what concerned me the most about that was I didn't really care. That is so not my personality. But I could just feel myself giving up. And so on the third day, my physician lets me know, he said, Wendy, this probably will not be a surprise to you, but we've got to do surgery. You're officially bleeding out. And I can tell you that based on your hematocrit level. And we can't transfuse the blood because you just don't hold it. You lose it faster than we can transfuse it.
Hmm.
And I knew that was absolutely true and was the situation. So made the difficult decision to have surgery. And so there's some relief to having made this hard decision. And it's after dinner, so you get your super early dinner in the hospital. It's about
Hmm.
4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm alone in my room, just trying to visualize the best possible outcome with that surgery the next morning. And the minute I have that thought, I pop right out of my body, leave my body. The relief, no longer in pain, no longer so scared, and I'm feeling better and better. I'm feeling more clear-headed. I'm feeling more like myself. And I remember looking back over my left shoulder and looking at my body, myself as Wendy in the bed, and my sense of humor was coming back really quickly too. And I'm like, oh my God, look at her. She looks like a hot mess. Because of course, my hair looked like the wild woman of Borneo. There's been no mirror, no comb, no brush, no hair washing for like 4 days. So, and I also notice it's like, wow, she's whiter than the sheets. And then I'm like, wait a minute, why am I referring to myself in third person?
Mm.
She, her, and I'm like, who am I? Like, well, I'm me.
Right.
I'm my soul. I'm my eternal soul. I'm my higher self. And I knew I was meant to be this like bouncy, like beach ball of like just energy.
Hmm.
The body, of course, is very important because it houses our soul and we're meant to take great care of it. But we're not our body. I mean, that was abundantly clear.
Hmm.
All I cared about at that moment was following the white light because I can see the white light at home. It's coming through the ceiling, kind of like in a triangle shape.
Okay.
I just want to follow that. So I take one more casual look at my body in the bed and I go, she's fine. Very blasé, very detached from the body because I know my soul is eternal and
Hmm.
I'm going to follow that light. So I do that and I bounced right out of the room. I bounce out of the top of the hospital building. I can look back. It's starting to become like a Google Earth effect. And then it becomes, as I'm further and further away, there's a term for what astronauts see, like an overview effect, where you can start to see the curves of
Hmm.
the planet, and just the beauty of Earth really struck me. And I had the thought, we've got to take better care of her. I mean, this is our lives depend on us doing a better job at
Hmm.
this. So, but I want to follow the light. So I let go of that brief thought and I just keep on going. And there's this gentle magnetic pull and you're just guided and you know the way home.
Hmm.
But all of a sudden, I have this like stutter to a stop. Like if you've ever been in a car that runs out of gas,
Yeah.
the terrible feeling of like, oh, I'm like all
Hmm.
the way out of gas. And I just stopped. And I thought, goodness, don't make me walk through that long tunnel to get home. I'm not going to make it. Again, this is 97. I
Mm-hmm.
really know next to nothing about near-death experiences, and I can't remember ever having been told or read about this tunnel that
Mm-hmm.
many of us go through to get home. But you know, there was that knowledge, just like that soul level knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I have the thought, that's going to be too hard for me, I need help. And the minute I have that thought, this gorgeous escalator drops, and I'm like, yes, there's my ride home. So I plop myself on it. It's so clean, so much light from it. I'm the only one on it. And in plopping myself on it, I plopped over the right handrail.
Mm-hmm.
That made me realize I wasn't a beach ball like I should be, like a big orb. I
Mm-hmm.
was just like flatter than a pancake, just like hanging on the handrail because my body's been bleeding out for days. So, and the soul has got some impact from that too,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. So the escalator just takes me up and up and up. At the top of the escalator, I get the best hug of my life, and my soul family is waiting there. There's like 18 or 20 of them. They all look exactly the same, like these big bouncy beach balls
Mm-hmm.
of energy. And behind them, I can see the same 4 or 5 angels that were there in my bathroom. I can tell they're angels because they're much larger and there's so much more light coming from them. But everyone grabs me and stops me at the top of the escalator because I just wanted to run forward because, hey, I'm home.
Right.
My gosh, I just want to explore and go everywhere. And so they stop me and give me this hug. And the unconditional love, the lack of judgment, just the full incredible support. It just makes me want to cry even now,
Mm.
26 years later. And it made me realize we need to give this energy to ourselves. We've just got to have that self-love, the self-respect, the self-compassion, and then radiate that out to others. Because so much of the love that we give and receive on earth, frankly, it's conditional. So I'll love you, but I need you to do this. And just, I'll love you, but can't you change this?
Right.
It's just, if you can, if you've had a child, or just, I think that might be one of the best moments of just feeling that unconditional love, or holding someone else's child, or sometimes it's with an animal, it can be with a pet too, or hopefully with other people also.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting this hug, and the same angel starts talking, and he says, "Welcome home. We're so glad you're here. You made it. You've done nothing wrong. You're welcome to stay." The minute he starts speaking, I'm like, "Oh, that's Archangel Michael. Of course, that's who was speaking to me in the
Mm.
bathroom. Now I recognize him. I know that voice. I know that energy." And when he says, "You're welcome to stay," I'm still getting this hug. I'm like, well, of course I'm staying. Why would I do anything else? But at a certain moment, everyone kind of like, breaks off and stands back so I can focus and listen to him. And he says, "You're welcome to stay, but if you want to go back, you're going to need to decide quickly." And I kind of flash back on that body in the bed, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely." So he continues and says, "I can tell you 3 things to help you make your decision. Number one, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow. You will fully regain your health." This is huge because I've absolutely been very concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, if you choose to go back, your baby will be born healthy. Also huge. And as I said, with infertility, with having had ectopic pregnancies, I just, both my husband and I felt like this was a really special pregnancy. Of course, every pregnancy is, but this was such a wanted child. And I really felt like it was my last opportunity to have
Mm.
another child. So this is a big deal to hear. So I'm starting to waffle a little bit. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? I've got this new information is making me lean toward going back. So
Mm-hmm.
number three now is the kicker. If you choose to go back, Archangel Michael continues, your life will be very difficult, likely for many years, because
Mm.
you're not living your purpose. You're not on your life path. My energy just plummets. I am so chagrined. I feel terrible and I'm embarrassed. No one wants to hear they're not living their life purpose. So, of course, I look at him. I'm like, well, what is it? Tell me more. Because what am I supposed to be doing, not
Hmm.
doing? What should I let go of? What should I change? And he just gently shakes his head. So I'm like, okay, no more information there. But I'm like, well, wait a minute, come on. Group dynamics with my whole soul family, the people that I've incarnated with so many times that we know each other so, so well. There's got to be a chatty Cathy in the group, right? I just think
Someone has to have loose lips.
exactly. So I start shaking down everybody. I'm like going around to person to person to person. And no one can tell me. No one is supposed to tell me. So my energy again is just plummeting. Can I do this? And they see me because you've got this telepathy at home. Everyone knows what everyone's feeling and thinking and experiencing. And they see me just really, really deflating. So they start being funny. And I just think sense of humor is absolutely one of life's gifts and one of our best coping mechanisms and sources of joy. So they start being ridiculous. So when I ask someone and they can't tell me, they're not supposed to tell me, they just put duct tape over their mouth. But they're like ridiculous about it. They're like really showy and like,
Hmm.
just like being really, really funny or like, lock and key and throw away the key. But so I just start laughing. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. You're not supposed to tell me. That's up to me to figure that out. That is part of my path,
Hmm.
is to learn my path or to just proceed in the best way I can while still having that information blinded, because many of my clients just feel so frustrated by that. But this is common. So because it's like you're reading the best ever book and it's 800 pages and you're on page 49. You're not supposed to go to
Just
page
skip to the
800
end.
because it's going to ruin the story. So Michael now asks me, what do you want to do? And the moment he asked me that, Chris, all I can see is our adorable daughter's face, our toddler's face. And Tara had the biggest hazel eyes and this brown curly hair, but I wasn't seeing her like life size. Her face and her smile, it like filled my worldview. It was like bigger than an IMAX screen.
Mm.
Just the moment that Michael asked me that, and I'm also going through, oh, and I'm going to regain my health, and I'm going to have another baby, and the baby's going to be healthy, going to be born healthy. So I'm like going through this. So he says, what do you want to do? So at that point, I tell him, put me back in, coach. I'm ready to play. Meaning, I'm ready to engage with life at a deeper level, and just really do my best and figure out that path and purpose. And I tell him I want to go back for my children. So everyone gives me a second group hug, and I can see five individuals the most clearly. I could see all four grandparents and one of my best friends
Hmm.
in this lifetime. That was very interesting to me because she is very much alive. And what I realized was, wait a minute, that means higher self energy can be here too. And that means there's no missed reunions, because I hear many people worrying about, well, what about, if reincarnation is true and I drop my body and I go on home, and what if my mother's not there? What if so-and-so's not there because they've reincarnated and they're
Hmm.
off, having a grand new adventure? Well, the higher self energy, there's always a portion of it at home because that energy is so huge,
Hmm.
and it gives us the ability to be in multiple bodies at the same time if we choose that strategy.
Hmm.
Also, I wasn't surprised to see my mom's parents, my maternal grandparents, because I knew them really well, and they'd been such an important part of my life. And they had died, and so I was not surprised to see them there. But I could also see my dad's parents, and everyone looks exactly the same. Just this, delightful beach ball, white, incredible orb, big orb. But you know exactly who they are because you know the energy signature, even though everyone looks the same. And that made me realize too, what is with this nonsense that we have going on this planet with racial bias, with cultural, with gender bias, with just, oh, it's like, let it go.
Mhm.
We're just all the same. We're just all souls that are choosing to have a human experience.
Mhm.
But seeing my paternal grandparents, my dad's parents, was super cool, and to recognize them immediately because I never met them in this lifetime. They died before I was born. Yet again, you just have that recognition. You know exactly who's who. So they all give me this big hug for a second time. And that time I realized it wasn't just unconditional love, it was energy. They were giving me an energy download. I
Mm.
don't know that I would have survived that long, complex surgery the next day without getting this energy infusion, as well as that love and support from everyone. It was such a big deal. So I get that big hug, and then everyone takes a step back because Archangel Michael says, time to go. And he just like spins me around, and I get back down on the down escalator, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and I'm just smiling. I'm just beaming, and I feel so different than I did before having had these two experiences. And everyone's in cheerleader mode for me. They're like, get back in there. You can do it. We'll be rooting for you. You're so
Mhm.
brave. You'll figure it out. Because I'm like, oh, yeah, life purpose. So I just go back down the escalator, and I land right next to my body. I'm in the hospital bed. There's no one else in the room. And I just go gently and just plop back into my body. And I had two immediate thoughts. And the first one was, dang, why did she pick such a little body when my energy, our higher self, our souls are so big and trying to cram into this 5'2" body? But then I was like, well, wait a minute, I picked it. So I just need to be happy with it and do my very best with it and be a great caretaker for it, even though I feel squished right now.
Mhm.
And the other thought was like, ooh, 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 the pain. Wow, the discomfort. I'm so glad the surgery's tomorrow. So obviously, I had a successful surgery the
Mhm.
next morning. What they found, they had some sort of guided imaging going on, and were
Mhm.
very careful. It's two OB/GYN physicians, and they, of course, I'm only 10 weeks pregnant, so the fetus is tiny. And my doctor mentioned, he said the fetus was tucked all the way down in like the lower left of your uterus. So of course, we made sure not to get anywhere near that.
Mhm.
And what we could see as we were doing the surgery, it was your fundus, Fundus. What that is, it's the aorta at the top of the uterus. And he said that had ruptured. And that's why all the blood loss. So they surgically repaired that. And my doctor estimated that I had lost, based on the transfusions, etc., that I lost an estimated 3/4 of my blood supply.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate to be living in the era that we live. If this had happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago,
Right.
I would have gone home. But so just that amazing medical assistance, that and energetic and angelic assistance that I got, because it all came together. So I recover in the hospital for a couple days. I get sent home for 6 weeks of strict bed rest. I
Mhm.
couldn't have done anything else if I tried. I was just weaker than a kitten, because I'm still trying to replenish that blood supply. And just also I'm pregnant, so all that's going on too. So we were very fortunate, because we had the live-in nanny for our daughter, so she's taking care of me too, because my husband needs to be at work.
Right.
So I go back to work. It's a job I love. It's a busy ambulatory surgery center, and I go back to work, and I'm passing coworkers in the hall. I've been away from work for 7 weeks,
Hmm.
so everyone's like, "Wendy, how are you? Are you okay? We've been so concerned about you. We're so glad you're back." And what happened? And I have like no words. I don't know how to unpack it. Chris, I did not share, I tried to share the experiences with my husband. And what I realized very quickly, he didn't have a belief system to support them. And he was actually more traumatized, I think, by what I went through, because he's understandably thinking, I may be losing my wife and my baby, and I may be raising an 18-month-old alone.
Hmm.
So he's in that headspace, and I also did not know what was going on at his work
Hmm.
at that time. I would find that out pretty quickly. So I tried to share it with my mom, and again, just no belief system for it. So
Right.
I didn't know what to do with it. I chose not to share it with medical personnel because, again, it's 97, and I did not think that would be an appropriate, beneficial conversation. I did
Hmm.
not want or need a psych eval. I knew what was true, and I just put it away. The irony of that is so interesting because I was living in Seattle, and that is home to the original chapter of IANS, the International Association for Near Death Studies. It's a 40-plus-year-old chapter of support for near death experiencers and their family and friends in the community, but I didn't know about it. So evidently, I was meant to just kind of unpack this alone. It took me 20 years
Wow.
to be able to really language this. Many other things would need to happen. My belief system would need to keep opening for me to be able to make sense of it. And then interestingly, I shared it on a podcast with someone that was pretty new to podcasting also, and it just was the right time to be able to share it. So I'm back at work and just working to regain my health. Everything goes well until early of November 1997. So I've been back at work now about 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And my boss calls me into his office on a Friday afternoon. I don't think a thing about it. I think, oh, he just wants to, let me know something he needs done next week, or chat about the weekend.
Hmm.
We had a great relationship. I'd been in that position for more than 3 years. But the minute I walk into his office that Friday afternoon, I can just see weight of the world on his shoulders. And I can see human resources sitting there with my personnel file on the table. They don't have to say a word. I've just walked in and I'm like, oh, wow, the dreaded
Hmm.
Friday afternoon layoff. Here we
Yep.
go. So I get laid off from a job I love that we really count on the income from, and I hold the health insurance for the entire family. And I'm pregnant. Yay. So this is a really, really tough layoff. They're as kind as they can be. Wendy, here's your severance package. You're going to have wonderful references. Please file for unemployment right away. Let us know anything we can do to help you. We're so sorry. We know the timing is horrible. But it is what it is.
Hmm.
So I go home and lick my wounds and let my family know what's going on. And it's like, okay, we're going to figure it out. We're going to just need to cut our budget, be very frugal. I'll be
Hmm.
looking for a job, have some unemployment coming in, be a little bit of help. But Chris, we were heavily mortgaged because we had had two careers going really well. We purposefully worked in different industries
Hmm.
as a strategy. But we'd purchased a new, larger home, and we
Hmm.
had just also purchased a minivan to be able to get those two car seats in
Yep.
and out. And so bills were high. Bills were based on two incomes.
Hmm.
And as I said, we also had the full-time nanny, and she was on a contract, so there wasn't any wiggle room there either. So I'm doing everything I can to, just figure out the family finances, look for a job, etc. Exactly 1 week later to the day, my husband comes home from work really late, like 3 hours late, and I'm concerned. I cannot reach him on his cell, and I'm thinking, did he have a fender bender? Is his phone not charged? What's going on?
Hmm.
So I'm sitting in the living room by the front door when he walks in because I don't know what to do. And he walks in. It's about 8 or 8:30 at night, that Friday night, and he says, "Wendy, I've got something really hard to tell you. Let's just sit down and talk it through." And I'm like, "Are you okay? What is going on? Oh my goodness!" And the first thing he says to me as we sit on the couch together is, "I've just had to go to payless paydays." And now it becomes like, do you remember Charlie Brown, where when the adults talk, it's like, rah, 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 rah.
Yep.
You can't, I can't hear anything he's saying to me. All I can hear is payless payday. And I'm like, those two words don't go together. Does
Yep.
not, don't get it. And so I had to interrupt him at some point and say, "I'm so sorry. Tell me again what's going on. I don't understand payless paydays." And he was one of 5 owners of a successful software company that had been his dream. He had worked so hard for that. And they employed about 100 people, beautiful office in downtown Bellevue. And it had been doing great. And that, gave us the confidence, as well as my great job, that gave us the confidence to, live life the way that we were. And what he let me know was that they had gone out of business. It had been very sudden. They had laid off everyone essentially in the company, and he was going to be at work very, very long days to, what do we do to get this company sold? Can we get it sold? What do we do for new employment? What do we do about the lease? How do we get all our employees, letters of reference, get them on unemployment,
Right.
just what do we do with these furnishings and equipment? And the kicker was, he's like, "Oh, and I'll be programming because we've got contracts sold that we've got to fulfill
Hmm.
to keep our reputation and be employed
Right.
in this area." And I'm like, "Okay, that's what payless payday means. You're working 80 hours a week plus, and there will be no paycheck." Okay. And so I tried to just take a deep breath and be compassionate. It is one thing to be laid off from a job that you really enjoy and count on. It's another thing to lose your company. So I said to him, "Let's just take the weekend. We're smart people. We're going to figure this out. On Monday, you can file for unemployment. We'll just get some more, get what we can coming in the door here, and we'll figure things out." And that was the next shock. He's like, "Well, Wendy, I don't qualify for unemployment. I'm self-employed. There is no unemployment." Well, I didn't know that because I'd never been self-employed. And also, he had not been sharing with me the warning signs that were coming up. And he's a very optimistic person, very optimistic. And I did know that. So he's just always, "Oh, it's going to work out. It's going to work out." Well, in this case, it didn't work out
Mm.
as planned and intended. So no paycheck, working crazy long hours, and I can't find a job. So we're down literally to my unemployment, and we have no health insurance. So the next thing that happened that was wonderful, I'm not finding a job. And this is November of 1997. We didn't know the economy was going into a it was going into a nosedive because I'm working in healthcare. He's working in tech. He's working in software. Didn't matter what industry you're in. So I'm sitting in the pediatrician's office with our daughter, and all of a sudden, just trying to keep her busy, like, "Oh, please call our name soon." and and all of a sudden, I hear, "Look, look!" And I can hear it's Archangel Michael's voice. So I'm
Hmm.
looking all around the room, like, "Are the kids okay? Is everybody okay?" And I can see this lamp on this little side table just getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and I can see a brochure in front of it. So it's like, "Oh, okay, okay, I see it. You want me to see that brochure?" So I run over, daughter in football hole,
Hmm.
diaper bag, run over, grab it, and stuff it in the diaper bag to read when I'm home because they called our name into the room then. And when I get home, Chris, I am so thrilled. What it was an application for WIC,
Hmm.
Women, Infants, and Children. I didn't know what that was, but it's a specific form of Medicaid, of
Hmm.
assistance. And it was the first thing that we were able to qualify for because we didn't qualify for anything because we were wealthy. because we had a house that we're about to lose. We had a car, it's about to be repossessed, but we're wealthy. So I apply for it, and I'm thrilled because I get health insurance for myself and for my daughter, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to cover the pregnancy despite being pre-existing condition. Also, it gave us some food stamps for some healthy food, which honestly we really needed at that point. So this was wonderful. And I'm also like, wow, I can still hear angels. So this is just a big. So what happens now is fast forward to the delivery. So I delivered the healthy baby girl, just as I
Mm-hmm.
was told, healthy baby, March 13th, 1998, and at my local hospital where it had the near death experience and all the other wonderful care for me, and where I delivered my first daughter. But I'm given a very brief stay. They're now called drive-through deliveries. And so she's born, and we're home the very next day, and I'm alone and just in the primary bedroom nursing her, just so filled with not only love but relief because of what I had gone through
Mm-hmm.
during this pregnancy, and to see that wonderful, healthy little baby girl. And Archangel Michael at that point came right into my bedroom. I could see that white light of home come like that triangle again.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in, and he just very conversationally said to me, "Your contract with your husband is complete."
No.
Exactly. Only I was a lot more colorful with my language. And then I'm like, not my finest moment, swearing at an archangel. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe that doesn't mean what I think it means. Let me clarify. Let's ask more questions here. And so, Archangel Michael, are you saying my marriage is over? And he nods, and then he leaves.
Let's just keep on coming.
Wow, that's interesting. What happened? Everything is moving very quickly again at this point, Chris, because I deliver on a Friday, and my husband is back to work on Monday. So the astrology must have all
Mm-hmm.
just shifted, and they were able to get, the five of them, the five owners were able to get the company purchased, and they're now in their new position, and he's back to work full time, and I'm like trying to catch my breath. When Michael said that to me, I had not known about soul contracts at that time. I believe soul contracts are agreements that we make to help us progress, and that we often have soul contracts with those closest to us. When he said it, I didn't want to hear it, but I knew it was true.
Mm.
I knew it was right. So what do you do with that? It wasn't something I chose to share with my husband because it, again, was not going to fit his belief system. I chose to stay. We did our very best to be kind, caring spouses, but when a contract's complete, it's complete.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to stay. I thought it was best for all of us and for the family to stay until both girls were in school full time.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we did divorce. We did so very peacefully. I am proud of us for what we did. And we went to a 50-50 shared residential
Mm-hmm.
schedule, and just made sure to focus on the children. What do they need? It's
Right.
about the kids. It is not about the parents' problems, egos, issues, lack of communication, lack of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
That's adult business. It does not belong on the children in any way. So we then moved into that next stage. We were very fortunate financially, because with that huge shortfall that was going on from November to March, and then
Mm-hmm.
I got back to work in June. So there'd just been a lot of unemployment, and we'd gotten really behind. We were very fortunate. We were saved by Bank of Mom.
Mm-hmm.
My mother had kindly stepped to the plate and given us a loan for the amount we were short each month from just the
Mm-hmm.
bare bones budget, and so that had gotten us through. So then once we were divorcing, my mother chose to move out here. She lived in Boston. My husband and I had met and married in Boston, and then moved out to Seattle. So we're all the way across the country.
Hmm.
Didn't have any other family around us, and I'm the only child, so only grandchildren. And she was retired, and friends had been saying to her for about 2 years or so, "Why don't you consider moving out to Seattle? Because they're not going to come back to Boston."
Yeah.
So why don't you consider moving out there? So once I was divorcing, that did come together, and my mother proposed that we build a two-family home together, and that she would just help. And she said, "I'm Team Grandmom. What I mean by that is, if you need help, I'll help you. If your former husband needs help, I will help him, because it's about the family. It's not about picking favorites here. It's just whatever the family needs."
Hmm.
That was huge. That was so incredible for all of us, and really grateful to her for doing that. So fast forward now another um, 6 years or so, and my daughters are now 12 and 14. Life is going really well. We were finally able to get the house built. I've rebuilt my career. Girls are doing great. And all of a sudden, Chris, I just kind of look around and I'm like, oh, something's missing. Next stage. I'm ready for the next stage. What is that? I'm like, oh, wow, I'm so surprised now that I've been divorced 6 years, because I had zero interest in dating. I just really wanted to focus on the girls, and just, and like the career. And as I said, getting the house built, there just had been a lot going on. But now everything's going along really smoothly again. So I'm like, I'm ready to meet a great guy.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, what? Where do you do that? I have no idea. I haven't been on a date in 25 years. So I asked I didn't feel like I was meeting anybody through, like, church or
Hmm.
friends of friends, or obviously you're not going to go out to a bar. It was different. Like in college, you're meeting new people all the time, and different stages of your life, you might be meeting new people a lot, but I was not. So I asked younger girlfriends who were actively dating, and said, "Hey, how did you meet, your great guy? How'd you meet your boyfriend, your fiance, your second husband, whatever?" And again, girlfriend said to me, "Oh, Wendy, that's easy." And this was now 2010. They said, "Wendy, that's easy. You just need to go on Match.com." And I'm like, "Match. What? What are you saying to me?" I didn't know what online dating was.
Mm.
So girlfriends helped me put together profile, take some pictures, and get that done. And the minute I changed the radius, because most algorithms are based on how far apart are
Hmm.
you, willing to live. The minute I put in 10 miles, because I lived in a very, urban area, and you could have a pretty tight mileage. Plus, traffic was terrible. So that 10 miles could take you 45 minutes plus.
Yeah.
So the minute I change it to 10 miles, this profile comes up, Chris, and it's like I'm mesmerized. I cannot look away from this profile. I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is. I know this man. I know this man. And I'm reading through his profile. It was very unusual. There's nothing trite or predictable about it. But it's like I knew what it was. I could feel it in my heart. It's like I knew
Hmm.
what it was going to say, like two sentences ahead. Like, what is going on here? I've not had an experience like this before. The very last line he wrote was, "Any woman on a spiritual path, particularly one interested in an LBL, we have to meet." So I'm like, LBL, what's LBL? So I asked my guides, because I'd learned by then, Google with your guides. Do not just jump into the rabbit hole of wrong information, that may not be suitable, and can take you forever. So it's like, okay, show me the right information. What does he mean by LBL? So I immediately found Life Between Lives, which was Dr. Michael Newton, who was an amazing hypnotherapist that had ended up doing past life regression sessions and Life Between Lives. He wrote
Hmm.
an amazing book called Journey of Souls back in the these or early 90s that I had never read, because again, just none of that was on my radar. at that time. So as I'm reading, and I'm like, the Newton Institute, and I'm like, past life regressions, life between. I'm like, this is fascinating. This is it. This is like, this is what was missing. This is like the answer. And it was like getting my cup filled up. It was amazing. So I immediately order Journey of Souls from the library. It's 2010. It's before
Mhm.
Kindle instant gratification, and I'm waiting for the book to come. So I now email this match, and I said, "Are you talking about Michael Newton, Journey of Souls, Life Between Lives, Past Life Regression? Do I have the correct reference? Because I know you. Where do I know you from?" And he writes back right away and he says, "I know you too. And I don't know where we know each other from, but we have to meet." And he says, "Have you been for past life regression? Have you been for an LBL? I'm getting ready to go for my second Life Between Lives." And I'm like, "No, I can't wait for the book to arrive." I just told him the truth. I said, "I'm waiting for Journey of Souls to arrive from the library." And what Life Between Lives is, it is a 4 hour, very deep hypnotherapy. It's a guided meditation, so to speak, where you're working one on one with a therapist. And guess what? You get to go home to the light. It's like a near death experience with no trauma.
Oh, that's
There's nothing that's taken you to the brink of being about to lose your life,
mhm.
and it takes you back in utero this lifetime, and you find out, why did I choose this body? Why did I choose these parents? What am I here for? What's my purpose? How am I doing? All the things that I so wanted to know, and that so many people so want to know. And then you might go back to some scenes earlier in this lifetime to alleviate and relieve those, do inner child healing. There can be what's called shadow self, that part of you you least like. And then you go back into a past life briefly. You're just going like back along your timeline earlier and earlier. And then you purposefully leave that last day in the past life and you go on up to the light. Whatever
Mm,
the right term is for you, heaven, the universe, Summerlands,
yeah.
whatever the belief system is, but you go on back to source love, you go on back home. And you then, it's like being on the most delightful train ride of your life. There's about 12 different stops that you can make. And it's a little bit different for everyone, what order it goes in and how much time you spend there, because it's unique to what you most need. And your higher self and guides are architecting it just like they do your past life regression session. So you can do things like reunite with your soul group, meet with a council of elders, find out more about why you chose this particular body, why you chose this particular lifetime and parents, what you're working on. You can recreate, you can receive healing, you can find out what your job is at home. We're not just eating bonbons floating around on clouds. We do very interesting things at home. So we're learning all these things in this deep process called a life between lives, because you're
Mm,
not in your body, you're not incarnated, you're at home with the light. So he's getting ready to go for the second session. So it took us 3 weeks to meet. We're just trying to sync up schedules, and that gave time for the book to arrive, and I just devoured it and was so intrigued. So we agreed to meet for lunch. It's a weekday, and I get to the restaurant first. I'm sitting on the little bench in the foyer, just looking, kind of relaxing, kind of looking around, waiting for him to
mhm.
arrive. And the minute he comes in, I not only recognize him immediately, I can feel the earth moving. I'm like literally kind of holding on to the bench, and I can hear, "Your life will never be the same. Ready." And I'm like, wow, earthquake, earthquake, what is going on? I'm looking around like, no, no one else is reacting. This is Wendy's personal earthquake. So I couldn't stand up. And he comes right over to me and just kneels down and is like looking in my face and in my eyes. And he says, "I know you." And I was like, "I know, we need to figure this out." So he helps me up, and we're seated for lunch. We're there for 3 hours. We would have been there longer, but oh my gosh, do eventually have to go back to work. And we're just finishing each other's sentences. And it's this feeling of, there you are, we've got to catch up. I've been looking for you. And it's soul level recognition. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Have you had that experience with anyone?
A couple people.
Yes, yes. And if you ever meet anyone, it's like, that feeling, it's just, that's a soulmate. That's someone
Hmm.
you've known before. So it's just a big deal to find people like that. So during that 3 hours, we went through everywhere we'd ever lived, traveled, every professional group, everywhere. And we're like, okay, it's not this lifetime. And we both said at the same time, it's from our past lives. We have significant past life history together. And I'm like, listen to me. This is so wild to hear this coming out of my mouth because that had not been my belief system until I met him. So this is another soul contract. He had the soul contract to wake me up spiritually, which he did just by, us recognizing each other and by introducing me to Journey of Souls, past life regression into life between lives. So that's how that all really, really got going. And years later, once I got much more open, um, just psychically and energetically, I have the ability to find soul contracts. And I did ask, what was my soul contract with my former husband? And because I just wanted to make sure that just everything had been done to the best of my ability, because that was a really, really hard decision to make, to leave, because I married for a lifetime, as did he. So it really was hard. And what I learned was our soul contract was to have a long-term marriage that we would both grow from considerably and have beautiful children together. And I could see Archangel Michael, he like underlined the plural in children.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's why the day after our youngest was born, he came in and told me. And there was no meanness, there's nothing inappropriate. He was very factual. Your contract with your husband is complete. And then I needed to choose what to do with that information. So I feel if I had stayed in that marriage, I would not have grown and progressed. I would not have lived my purpose and path. And I know that might sound shocking and selfish. I get a fair bit of criticism for it. It is what it is. Each person has to know their own path of what's right for them. And it was scary and hard to leave. It was harder to leave than it was to stay. And that can also be a sign that we're meant to be making a change. If you're staying based on fear and not wanting to change, it's, and I think, again, that's what I meant to Archangel Michael when I said, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to do this in a bigger way.
Once you get more into your spiritual awakening, kind of how that impacted your relationships with your family and friends before and
Yes.
after, kind of you
Yes.
came out with that information.
Yes, waking up spiritually, having our belief system change in such a major way and going through things like the near death experience, meeting the person with the contract to wake you up, it can make a lot of family and friends fall away. And I found that hard in the beginning. I found it isolating. I found it lonely. It made me question whether I was doing the right thing. You've got to trust yourself. You've got to know what's in your heart, and we're meant to learn and progress and grow, and sometimes that's uncomfortable, but I did have enough confidence, and it came up primarily via me going for my very first past life regression, because now here I am with this boyfriend who's really on this path. He had maxed out of 10 years of men's Bible study, and he wanted more and he wanted the bigger picture. And that's how he then discovered someone had given him a copy of Journey of Souls in a very interesting way, someone he did not know. And, met like one time, and they just said, I just finished reading this book. I can't remember if it was like somewhere he was like renting temporarily or something. He
Hmm.
said, I think you're supposed to have this book. Here's a book for you. And it was, and I've heard that time and time again
Hmm.
from Journey of Souls being a wake up call for people, and Dr. Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. Those two books seem to be a wake up call for a lot of people. So that was hard because my family um, does not have this belief system in reincarnation. They do not work with energy the way I do. They're just not on this path at all. They were disturbed. They
Mm.
were concerned for me. They were worried about me, and they, in the beginning, blamed it on my boyfriend. Of like, why are you being so overly influenced by this boyfriend with a wacky belief system? I'm like, because it makes a lot of sense to me, and it's time for this change in my life. So, yes, a lot of people fell away, and that's okay, because we just when we grow, that happens, and
Mhm.
doors close and new doors open. So that's just part of life. So what happened was I got so interested in having an LBL from the moment I read
Mhm.
that in his match profile. And as I said, you need to go for past life regression first because it's an easier regression and it's more of like a learning curve to then be able to
Mhm.
do the 4 hour really deep one.
Mhm.
So my boyfriend found the first hypnotherapist. He found a lovely Michael Newton trained, marvelous hypnotherapist that specialized in past life regression for me to go to. And he said, I'd like to go to this gal, but her wait list is crazy long. And, but, maybe you'll be interested. And I read her website, had a phone interview with her. I was like, oh, yeah,
Good.
she's it. And I was happy to book one far out in the future because I needed to save the money because I just had a super tight budget as a single mom with two children in
Mm.
Seattle. So I'm fine with waiting. So because I want to go to her. So he actually ends up driving me and taking me to that session, and that was very interesting that that occurred. And it was 11/11. It was November of 2011, which is kind of funny. I didn't know about angel numbers at the time, but that's the classic light workers awake and, shake you to wake you number, the 1111. It's like
Mhm.
everything's getting going. And at that point, he and I had dated exclusively for 13 months with a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, and a lot of craziness. I had never been in a highest highs, lowest lows, very dramatic, very uncomfortable relationship.
Mhm.
I didn't feel commitment. He was, shall we say, a major extrovert, meaning incredibly flirty with other
Mhm.
people right in front of me. And I'd called him out on it multiple times and said, hey, that doesn't work for me. It's rude. It hurts my feelings. Knock it off. And he just would not or could not change the behavior. So, this is the kind of relationship we're in, and when he ended it at 13 months, I was devastated. I was just brokenhearted that we could not work it out. I later would find the soul contract. The first one, as I said, was wonderful to wake me up spiritually. The second soul contract is bloody brilliant. It was to break my heart repeatedly until I stood in my power fully without abusing it.
Mm.
That's pretty complex. No one deserves to have their heart broken repeatedly. We've got to stand up for ourselves and just say, hey, this relationship, it doesn't work for me. As much as I care about this person, as much as there's wonderful things about it, this is not an appropriate romantic relationship for me. We couldn't align regarding monogamy. Bottom line. So we needed to part. So that was a great service to me that he ended it. So, but that contract, I had karma. I had karma as a heartbreaker.
Mm.
So I needed to experience really having my heart broken. And I did. And then the piece about inspiring me to stand in my power fully without abusing it, I also had karma for having abused my power. So the way I was dealing with that in this lifetime, I was playing it very small, very safe, had anxiety, very careful, very conservative, not really living life. So the NDE helped bring me out of that, but
Mm-hmm.
much more needed to happen to be bold and free, and just to be able to be happy, and to be where I am today. So I was playing it super, super small. And he had said to me multiple times, I keep hearing for you, you need to let go of what other people think. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You need to do what's right for you and live your life, and not be so concerned about that, because that just was kind of the way I was socialized, and that was
Mm-hmm.
my personality. He was the absolute opposite. He had been a professional athlete and had become a sportscaster. So
Mm-hmm.
just, this very, very, very big personality. So what happens is we're broken up. My heart's broken. I do not want to see him again. I just want to focus on my kids, and work in my home, and just put my heart back together, and just recover.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that appointment to go to have the past life regression that I had set
Mm-hmm.
so long ago because of the long wait list. And he is saying to me, please, I still need to take you to that appointment.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it blocked on my calendar. I know when your first past life regression is. Can I go with you? Can I take you? And I'm like, go away. I will figure out some other transportation, for the love of God. And this was kind of before Uber and Lyft were so
Mm-hmm.
popular, but you did need a ride. This was back in the day when you did need a ride, and the therapist wanted me to have a ride home. You don't want to be focusing on heavy downtown traffic when you've just been in this altered state and really relaxing. And also, you don't relax as well if you've just driven there. So she really wanted me to have a ride to and from. So and what he said to me was so interesting. He said, I'm supposed to take you. And I said, you're supposed to take me? He's like, why did I just say that? I just know it's true. I said, it is true. And then later I'd find the soul contract,
Right.
that to help me wake up spiritually, literally is supposed to drive me to these sessions. So I did let him take me. We broke up in September, and the appointment was in late November. And Chris, I've never had this happen either. We were running into each other everywhere after we broke up, and it was ridiculous. It's not like there were places, like our favorite coffee shop, or
Right.
where we'd been. It's places neither of us had been together. And I'm like, oh my God, if you're ever running into someone like that again and again, you've got more things to work on with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Just do your best, and just ground yourself and figure it out, and be kind and compassionate, and just get through it. So it's like, okay, as ungracefully as possible, ungratefully as possible, like, all right, you can drive me. So he took me to the appointment, and that first past life regression I had, it was amazing. And the therapist had said to me on the phone, she said, well, I'll be honest, you're not an ideal candidate. You have no spiritual practice. You don't know how to meditate. You seem very anxious, very type A. I'm like, yep,
Yep.
all true, all true. But she said, are you willing to just know that we're just going to, it's just consider it a wonderful experiment, and we're just going to see what happens in that 2 hours, and we'll just see where you get.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to release your expectations, because everyone is different with how the sessions go. I was so fortunate, because to my great surprise and the hypnotherapist's surprise, I turned out to be an incredible subject, and I was just able to relax and follow her direction. We went back to multiple scenes earlier in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I cleaned them up. I let go of the angst. I just was freeing myself and just getting so much happier and healthier during this 2 hours. We found not one, but two past lives,
Mm.
and more detail filled in after them. And when she was just gently, fully waking me up and orienting me about 15 minutes before the end of the 2 hours, and we were, having me just sit up and drink some water, and talk it through. And she asked me a really interesting question. She said, do you have any issues with authority? What's authority like for you? And I just knee jerked. I said, I have no problems with authority, meaning I've never been arrested. That was kind of like my definition of a problem
Yeah.
with authority.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that's really interesting because when we look at those two past lives you just experienced, they both were major issues with authorities, encourage you to kind of like journal on them and think about them a little bit more. And she was absolutely right.
So what were those the past lives?
Yes. So the two past lives that came up, the first one, I landed in my body and I could see I was in London because I recognized a Bobby because they've got that distinctive uniform. And so I knew that I was in London, and I knew you could just feel. You just knew the details, and the therapist like leads you through like your body and like where you are, and just helps you kind of like peel the onion. They're not suggesting things to you. This is coming up from your own book of life, from your
Hmm.
own memory and records. So I'm out. I'm the daughter of a wealthy banker, and I'm out shopping for fun. And I'm at the local market, and I'm just like picking out some cheeses, and there's plenty of money. I'm not supposed to be out by myself because you're
Mm.
supposed to be chaperoned, but I couldn't find anybody to take me, so I snuck out of the house and had gone down to the market, the local market, and I saw a man there that I recognized. I knew he lived a couple streets over. He was very ill kempt. He didn't look well. I knew he was poor, and I had heard through gossip that his wife was ill and he was out of work and that they had several children.
Mm.
Well, there's no safety net for situations like this, and I see him steal some food. And unfortunately for him, the merchant yells out because he runs off with the food that he's tucked inside his,
Hmm.
his jacket, and he's just running. And there was a bobby right there in the area, and the bobby stops me because I just happened to be there, and says, "Where did he go? You must have seen the man that stole the food. Where did he go? I've got to catch him. Which way?" And I think, and I've got like, my whole lifetime of conditioning of, do the right thing,
Hmm.
and what the law is and what my parents would want and expect me to do. But you know what? What was right wasn't right. It wasn't right. So I start to, I lie. I plain old lie. And I start to send the Bobby in the dead wrong direction.
Hmm.
And then I actually heightened it. And I start just kind of playing helpless and like flirting a little bit. And I tell him who my father is and that my basket's really heavy. And could he please walk me home?
Hmm.
This is like so not Wendy, but it's just a different persona, but it's so genuine. And so he kind of like sighs and he's like, my father's a pretty powerful man. He's like, yeah, I better curry a little favor here and take
Hmm.
her home. So he takes my shopping basket from me and carries it and walks me home, which lets this other man get away.
Hmm.
So, some things going on with authority here. The second past life that I found in that very first past life regression took me a little bit of time to orient to because I was surprised to find the circumstance I was in. I was freezing, and my clothing was kind of tattered and torn, and my hair, I knew it was really grown out. It was like long and shaggy, and I was male. I was a young male, probably mid 20s, young adult male, and I'm chained to the wall, and I look around, I'm in prison. And so I've got some movement, but I'm just so dang cold and hungry. And I'm just trying to keep hope alive. And the therapist leads me through, and she's like, "Well, why are you there? What led to you being put in that prison?" And she's reassuring me, "You're all right. You're just fine. You can tell me what happened, and you're going to be okay." So she's reassuring me, and then I flash back to the two things that led to me being imprisoned, and it took me a while to put the pieces together to realize it was the time of the Spanish Inquisition. It did not take much to get thrown in prison. So I was a young teacher. I loved books. I loved teaching others to read and to write, and it was forbidden. that was being held to the upper classes and to the wealthy, because knowledge is power.
Mhm.
And being able to read and write is a big deal. So this was just being, it's still a strategy used today, sadly.
Mhm.
So I'd gotten on the watch list for, it was suspected that I was teaching people to read and to write. And also, I had been rounded up for one of those big public book burnings
Mm.
that were done as like an intimidation type of tactic. And I'd
Mhm.
been forced to watch that. And it just killed me. So I waited until I thought everyone was gone. And then I was recovering. I was taking a couple books out of the remnants of the fire that hadn't burned and like trying to, dust it off and see
Mhm.
was there enough of this book left. So that got me, I got put in prison.
Mm.
So for defying authority. Um, and how interesting to be a writer this lifetime and to love to read. How interesting to find out and to be a certified spiritual teacher now, and to find out that my job at home for eons, when not incarnated, was to work in the Akashic records
Mm.
and basically a librarian and able to find that special, because everyone has a book of life with all the information about us. But this is sacred knowledge. These books are not shared with other people. It's only for that person or for their guide or for an angel. And also, you don't hand these books over. So you're looking for like a certain bit of information from it. And you might be reading to the person and, who's with them and supporting them. Fortunately, people have enough experience. They're able to come on their own, or they
Mhm.
might be like an Akashic record reader or past life regressionist or whatever, where we have permission and specific permission to just help with a certain issue. It's not like we're reading all through it. It's a very sacred role, but it
Mhm.
just made perfect sense when I learned that. And my former boyfriend was joking with me. He's like, basically you're a glorified librarian. Like, yep, in a very special way, and glad
Mhm.
to be it. But I thought that just kind of played out with it. It just fit. It fit so well. And so at the end of that 2 hour session of that first past life regression that I had, the regressionist, she asked me, how do you feel? What feels different, if anything? And I said, oh my gosh, I no longer have anxiety. I had had anxiety my entire life. I was 50 years old at the time, and to feel that weight of the world come off my shoulders, it was a really big deal. So that just changed everything. And I was so excited by the session. And I said, get your book out. Because it's, back in the day, you've got paper calendar.
Mhm.
I said, get your book out. I'm ready to schedule my life between lives. And I'd like to schedule it for a year from now.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh gosh, I don't know if my book even goes that far. And she asked me why a year from now. I said, I don't know. I'm just hearing my guides say that.
Mhm.
And I think I'm supposed to learn how to meditate in the meantime to prepare. I think to have some different experiences and to
Mhm.
live with life without anxiety for a year to be able to really jump into this.
Mhm.
So I did have the life between lives a year later. Again, my former boyfriend drove me with just a lot of joy, because what we had done, and I've never been able to do this before. When I'm done, I'm done. But he and I, we realized when we kept running into each other that we were meant to be spiritual seekers together.
Mm.
And I did find the original contract with him, and contracts can be changed, and that's important. So do not feel like they're like these crushing
Mhm.
chains on you. Because if a contract, an agreement is not serving you, it needs to be renegotiated. It needs to be changed, ended. It needs to be redone, because it's about now, and there can be contracts that just don't make sense anymore. So the contract with my former boyfriend was for us to marry, have a very happy marriage, and to help others with their spiritual awakening. And it was very specific. It was for us to write books together. It was for us to be in the media together, to be on radio, possibly on television. And I was so heartbroken when we broke up because it was not only the relationship ending, that I had wanted to have a
Hmm.
different outcome, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, well, then I can't do any of these things," because he's the one that's the published writer. He's the one with the
Hmm.
connections, and before the past life, I had this crushing fear of public speaking where I couldn't see the audience.
Mm.
So a podcast, radio, television. I was always great in person. That was fine. I loved that, but just something, and it turned out to be multiple past lives
Mm.
had very poor, challenging outcomes, death, torture, etc. On that kind of, so it
Hmm.
doesn't make you want to do public speaking about spirituality. But so he and I did become spiritual seekers together. I helped him get his first book published. He's actually the client in my first book, because the wheel turned just beautifully. And a
Hmm.
few years later, after me having these incredible couple of first sessions, my first Life Between Lives, I actually transcribed the recording. I think you should always have a recording as the client, because you want to have that to go back to so that you can just relax during the session, and then you'll connect more dots and receive more healing. When I typed it, 65 pages
Wow.
information I had not known is what came through. That's not true for everyone. Everyone's different. But because of what I'm meant to be doing and how I'm meant to be serving, and
Hmm.
because of how shut up I was like a clamshell, it just that's what it took. And that former boyfriend and I, we found in the 8 years that we were um, in contact, we found 21 shared past lives together. So that's what was a big part of what was tripping us up, why we felt like these crazy highs and
Hmm.
lows. And he would say things to me like, "I don't trust you." And then he would say, "But that doesn't make any sense because you're incredibly trustworthy. And I know it's past lives, but I don't know what to do with it because I try and open up and, be vulnerable and be honest, and I can't do it." And then
Right.
it's like, okay. And then I would ask, because I was starting to have the ability, and also we had so many friends around us that were just finding our past lives. It was a very, very active time period for that. And friends would find them because we had several friends that were psychic mediums that knew how to do automatic writing, things that I was just starting to be able to learn to do. And they would say, "Hey, I found another past life, and guess what? The two of you are in it. Do you want to hear it?" Because you should always ask permission.
Hmm.
Do you want my impression? So we became spiritual seekers together, and it's important to understand that we were fulfilling the contract of helping others. So I help him get his first book
Hmm.
published. He becomes the client in mine. It wasn't what I thought because I was very literal. I thought it's us co-authoring, writing
Hmm.
a book together. And when that didn't work, and when we could not agree on monogamy and have that irreconcilable difference, it was better to end that contract for us to be together in a
Hmm.
marriage, because we would have been miserable. We would
Hmm.
have both been miserable. So I ended that contract with a spiritual teacher's help, because she gave me that concept and said, we need to ask his permission too. And I said, "Oh, he'll say yes in a nanosecond." But I did have the conversation with them. But it just put me on such a path of, I needed to understand what had happened, what hadn't, gone as planned, and why that was. So that, led me to so much more openings. It led to me to get to, my first astrology
Hmm.
reading. And I go to the astrologer and I said, "Oh, I'm interested." A friend explained this concept to me of like the birth chart and different
Hmm.
houses, different planets being in different houses, and our life path. Because again, I was always intrigued by that. And our north node and south node, what we've done a lot of and what we're working toward. I said, "Can I hire you for that?" And she said, "Absolutely." And then she asked me, she said, "Well, who's the important guy? Who's the important man? There's a romantic partner. He's like all around you." And I was like, "No, I'm divorced, no longer with my boyfriend." I'm like, "Nope, nope, 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 not dating. Nope, 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 nope." And she's like, "Well, he's so there. I can't even do a reading for you." And she described him a little bit more. I said, "Oh, I know exactly who that is." So I contacted my former boyfriend because she said what would be best to do would be to do a natal chart for me, a natal chart for him, and then look at a combined chart for the two
Mm.
of us. Because she said, I'm sensing some big destiny work for the two of you, and you're struggling with how to work it out. And I said, well, yeah, because we broke up. So I got his permission. He said, that sounds really interesting. Because I needed to know, I knew his date of birth, but I needed to know the exact time
Hmm.
if he knew it and the exact location. So he, happily shared that with me with permission. I said, I'll give you your natal chart and I'll give you the shared one. So
Hmm.
but that sort of thing kept happening again and again and again, as we worked our way through, the 21 lives together
Hmm.
over that 8-year period. And then the final contract for the two of us showed up, which was for us to master parting peacefully.
Mm.
He didn't like that contract. He was not happy about that. And I just said to him, I'll give you all the closure you need, just anything you want to talk about, or just, but I'm just letting you know I am going to be acting on that contract. So, we got together a couple more
Hmm.
times, talked a couple more times, and then I just closed it out,
Mm.
because again, it was time for a next stage,
Hmm.
and it just, I needed to be complete with it.
Hmm.
So, but that's how the spiritual journey really came up, with just a lot of surprises to it. um, and I just could not be more grateful for the journey, and to get to help people release the pain, the anxiety, the depression, the stuck energy,
Hmm.
and to know that that is my spiritual gift to do that. So I work with people one on one. I also do group Zoom sessions for clients and help them
Hmm.
find out amazing things like, who's my guide? What's my life purpose? Tell me a little bit about my past lives. I'm also um, fortunate to be a channel, and I'm able to channel the ascended masters and angels for people. So we do group Zoom sessions with like a limited number of people, and they can
Hmm.
ask one question, what they most need help with. And then I have a facilitator read me the question, so I can just stay in that trance state and channel whichever angel or ascended master can best help that person with what they need. So that's the journey, which has just been a heck of a surprise and a difference for a woman that started off as an MBA, and worked in healthcare business development for 30 years. So I thought this was just all coming up as personal interest,
Hmm.
but the universe gave me the gift, called another layoff in 2017.
Ew.
And that one was really, really interesting because it was for me to release fear, and to move into becoming what I first called self-employed, and then my guides corrected me and said, "Oh, we're going to move it to spiritually employed, and then we're going to move it to just being free and just plain old being in joy
Hmm.
with what you do." But to be there in 2017, in my mid 50s, with two daughters in college, and their dad was not participating in the expenses of that. So my bills had never been higher, and to have a layoff and to be looking for a job, the economy was strong. I had been, I had great references. I knew everybody. It's like I'd lived in the area for years, and it's like, this is very interesting. I'm not finding a job.
Mm.
So what I did was I just worked both sides of it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do the traditional job search, and I'm also going to start my business,
Hmm.
because I could just see again and again. I could see like a website for me. I could see my guides would say, hang your shingle, hang your shingle.
Hmm.
I said, what do you mean? Do you mean go into business and start offering these services? And they said, yes, exactly. And so that's what I did. And it's like, well, whichever takes off,
Right.
that's going to be the way I go. So that was 2017. So just, haven't looked back from that, and just, figured it out with my daughters. You're staying in college, and
That's
we'll figure out the rest.
that's great.
So we did.
So a couple quick little last questions. What is one piece of advice for someone who may be currently going through or has gone through a similar experience?
I would say just be kind to yourself and find a daily spiritual practice that makes you happy and uplifts you, and just be grounding and clearing your energy every day. And that helps you raise your vibration and frequency. So just being in your body, inviting your higher self into your body, invite your inner child in. So you've got that joy there, and just ground to the planet. I mean, we're meant to be in our bodies and on this planet. We're not meant to be all, airy fairy, just escapism of, oh, I'm going to meditate for 8 hours every day and just be up with the divine and up with God. And well, we came into these bodies for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having that spiritual practice, and also knowing that it can be more fun and more simple and easy than you think. Because when I was first told you need to learn how to meditate, you need a daily spiritual practice, I was like, I don't have time for one more thing. I could not fit it in my schedule if I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. Well, guess what? It's just who we are. So it's just when you're taking a walk, to just be communing with nature, hear your intuition. It's just to get that busy left brain
Mm-hmm.
to be quiet. Get that ego that's like so worried and so in the future and so in the past. Get in the moment. So I think that would be my just best advice. And know that, again, you can do that spiritual practice. You can meditate as you're falling asleep at night, or when you're waking up in the morning, or you're in the shower, you're doing the dishes. It's just to quiet it down so you can hear your heart, you can hear your intuition. And I find it really helpful. Everyone's had moments when their intuition has been spot on, and just think, did you feel it like in your gut? Did you feel it in your heart? Did you like get like goosebumps? Did you just like know? And just figuring out like what your primary psychic clair is, if it's feel, sense, hear, know, see, whatever it might be. And then just trust that, just trust our wisdom of our soul, and just be tuning into more of that. And it brings in so much more joy of just letting go of the things that don't serve you.
Do you have any parting words for the audience, and where can people find more information about you?
Yes, the best way to reach me is via my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And there you'll find the links to the books as well as to my podcast, which is wakingupspiritually.com. We archive them there on a website. And I would just love to be of service.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.